Well, I'm back from London.
You are, but you've been back for a while. And I'm a little confused.
But so, the last time we recorded...
I'm now realising that you're doing a follow-on from the last episode.
Yes.
And I meant to go, yes, you are, Mark. Tell us all about your fantastic time at the wrestling.
No, but I'm feeling quite bad because when I went to the wrestling, when I went down to London, I met up with Rob Daniel and Rob Wallace from the movie Robcast, which was lovely. Like, the first time I've met Rob Wallace, I've met Rob Daniel for a coffee a few years ago, but... Was it? Probably is a few years ago at this point. Yeah. But we had a lovely time. We had a lovely afternoon. We went out for dinner in a restaurant which was the most out of my depth that I've ever been. But they gladly talked me through everything we were doing there. It was a Chinese restaurant in Chinatown, so the food was, of course, amazing. And yeah, it was just, it was an absolutely lovely afternoon. But the reason I want to make this very clear is the next day, Rob Daniel messaged me on Twitter and said, "Oh, how was the wrestling?" And then immediately afterwards, no, actually don't. Leave it for the podcast. I want to know it.
Right.
So I didn't reply immediately. And then I've been thinking, shit, we need to do a fucking podcast because otherwise I'm the most ignorant person in the world.
Well, purely for Rob, how was the wrestling?
The wrestling was excellent. I think we touched upon, like, it was a touch underwhelming card.
Well, in our last episode when we talked about it, yeah.
But everyone brought it. I had an amazing time. I was cramped in like a battery farm animal, to be perfectly honest, in the seats at Wembley. Nowhere near as comfortable as it was in LA.
LA. Is that just Wembley Stadium generally, or was it your sort of the seats that you were... Because you were really high up, weren't you? You were quite...
Yeah, I mean, I've been to Wembley like 3 or 4 times now, and I can't remember it as being uncomfortable, but I think I was in the gods at this one.
And also, all indie podcasters went to AEW because folks from We Needed Roads podcast were there, folks from the Custard TV, both present and past, were there. Like, my timeline was just full of people that I know from podcasts that I listen to, all saying, I'm at AEW, Gary and Matt from the Custard TV podcast were going, like, quizzes, and you were, like, scrolling, you were seeing on my feed them, like, being with famous wrestling people and things like that, and I was showing you off. It was like, hang on a minute, is that...
I mean, the word famous is a bit stretch.
Know, but you
people
know what I mean.
who, not even are that well known, but clearly were listening to the same sort of podcasts. Yeah. But yeah, it was a lovely time. I had a lovely time around London. Just, it was nice to get relaxing and everything. I mean, it was quite weird because it was what's almost certain to be CM Punk's last match with AEW. He apparently got in a fight backstage just before his match. And so it was quite weird watching... In between, I was like scrolling through Twitter trying to find something, and as CM Punk was walking up the ramp to leave the ring, there's people tweeting saying, "Yep, we've got reports that he was in a fight backstage." I was like, "Christ, that's broke quickly."
And you didn't see any of that?
No, because it was backstage.
Right.
Basically, CM Punk had been winding a lot of people up backstage previously. He'd had an argument with Jungle Boy, Jack Perry, who is the son of Luke Perry.
Oh, Luke Perry from 90210 fame,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Jungle Boy.
They'd had an argument a few years ago.
Name.
Well, he used to come out to Amazulu.
Oh, yeah.
Tarzan Boy. But he's turned bad recently.
Oh, wow.
They had an argument because he had a week off scheduled and wanted to do, like, wants to be written off for a week by using some real glass. And CM Punk had apparently come along and stuck his nose in and said he shouldn't be using real glass in an angle.
Well, no.
Well,
obviously,
anyway.
Health and safety. Anyway.
So, unbeknownst to us, because we're in the stadium and we don't get the feed, he had a fight with Hook on the pre-show. I know this means nothing to you.
No.
But as part of it, he came out of a limousine and they had a fight on top of the limousine, and he tapped the windscreen and said, "That's real glass, cry me a river," to the camera.
Oh, it's all very odd.
Yeah. CM Punk took exception to this, and apparently it was a bit of a fight. And there's rumours that monitors were thrown. There is apparently footage, which I'm sure will leak out at some point.
I'm more excited about this guy, Hook. It's reminding me a lot of Steven Spielberg's Robin Williams film. Is Justin Hoffman going to pop out in a wig at some point?
No, and Phil Collins doesn't make a brief cameo.
And Glenn Close. Here you go, movie facts.
No, Hook is a young boy, like very young boy. He's the son of Taz.
Oh, I mean, it just gets better.
Yeah.
It just gets better. Taz is in Come to Tasmania.
No, a character sort of based on that originally.
Really?
And then,
I was joking, but
yeah,
you're being serious.
He was called the Tasmaniac and was like this wild... I mean, yes, he was a wild whatever a Tasmanian devil is meant to be, but then he became more a street thug, and yes.
So for people who really don't care about the wrestling, it's just to say that the wrestling chat will go on pause for a little while.
Yes.
Because you haven't got anything wrestling-y coming up.
No, I've hardly even been watching it, to be honest. I think I just need a little bit of a break from it.
Maybe we all do.
Oh, I mean, I was there last week at North again. But
yes, the local wrestling.
And we have tickets for November.
Yes, we do. We're off to North together, which is very exciting for me. I really enjoyed going, and I'm really looking forward to going with you.
Good.
Actually,
I'm looking forward to having you there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was a lovely weekend down there. It was a lovely to catch up with the Robs. Well overdue.
I was very jealous.
They took me a tour of the Sam Smith's pubs of London, which, as a Yorkshireman, I was very proud of to walk in. And it was like, oh, which pub should we go to? We got to the Chandos, I think it was called. Yeah, walked round Sam Smith's. I'm like, yep, it's nice and cheap. This is it. Yep, there we go. Not cheap, but it's good value, I think.
Yeah, especially in London as well.
Yeah. I mean, we always look for the Sam Smith's pubs when we're down there,
don't we? I can't remember that.
Yeah, we do.
You do all the sort of like the organisation. I just follow.
Yes, yeah. What was the one we went to?
We went down?
You're
going to ask me a question about which pub we went. I mean, I'm never going to remember.
So it was the pub that friend of the show, Alison and Chris, had been in and seen Sylvester McCoy in.
Ye Olde Cheshire Cheese.
There we go.
Yes, we went to that one because they'd seen Doctor Who in there, and therefore I was like, if we go, we might see Sylvester McCoy, but we didn't.
We didn't.
I didn't
see anyone famous.
No.
I mean, apart from the
famous
people who were in the stars of AEW, but
what do you mean? Like,
I didn't see anyone famous walking around London.
Oh right, okay, yeah, that's a shame. You always spot someone, don't you? There was some random celeb that you maybe...
Apart from the Robs, obviously.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, you had the best people taking you round the streets of London.
Yeah.
Watching television.
Shall I start off with Starstruck?
Go on, then.
I'm really annoyed that you don't like Starstruck.
And I have to, genuinely, I have tried to get into it recently because... Like, I've been dotting about, you've been watching it on an evening.
Yes.
And I've tried, really, really have, to sort of look up from my laptop from time to time or stand in the corner of the room if I'm sort of moving from one room to another and just see if it sort of does anything for me. But it just doesn't, to be honest with you. But I'm really happy that you love it.
Good.
Although, you might be about to tell me that you really don't like season 3.
So for anyone who's not been following the podcast, because I've been raving about this, I think this is the 3rd season that I've raved about on the podcast. Spoilers for where I'm going. This is the story of Rose Matafeo, who in the first series, the first episode, is at a New Year's Eve party, meets a guy, goes home with him, and when she wakes up the next morning, realises that he is one of the biggest British film stars around. He's a big action star, starring in franchise films and like a hunk that is desired throughout Britain and the world. He's played by Nikesh Patel, and throughout now 3 seasons they have an on-again, off-again romance. I was really disappointed when they said they were going to do a 2nd season because I thought the first season was just perfect, and left it just perfect between the two. The problem with this show is that it necessitates a problem between them at the beginning of every season. And when the 3rd season started and I saw, oh, look, there's another problem between them, then I was like, oh, again, this might be the most mature season that they've had. They go about their lives in very different ways. They have a split in the first episode. I think it's a spoiler to say. And they move on, and there is a fair time jump, and we see them meeting other people and being in other relationships, and then we move on, and as happens, their lives meet up and disappear. And this seemed like a real progression. It wasn't just season 1 and season 2 all over again, which was the big worry for me. Both both characters feel like they're growing up, and obviously Rose Matafeo is growing up, who writes this and stars in it, so it might just be that it's that she's growing up with these characters. But I fired through all 6 episodes of this in like 2 days, which I am not want to do normally. No. So yeah, this is the highest recommendation. This will be on my top 10 of the year.
Do you think there'll be another series?
I mean, I said I hope not twice now, and it's still come back. It's left in a point where it could do. It's left in probably a better position to have a 4th season than the previous 2 end of seasons, shall we say. I just want these people to be happy, and I think that's and I'm not necessarily sure that is together, but yeah, I just enjoy seeing these people interact, and they're maybe not the best people for each other, maybe 2 very different people, and I just want them to be happy in their lives, which I think is probably the strongest compliment I can give to this.
I'm going to talk about a show that's being compared to Starstruck, so it's quite a nice complimentary show to speak about. And this is The Lovers. It's a Sky Atlantic show. It's a new show, a brand new series.
Is this American?
No, it's not.
I don't understand why British shows go on Sky Atlantic. It seems the complete antithesis of...
I don't understand it at all, because I thought that as well. It's always a Sky Atlantic, like, original or something, you know, it's on Now TV. I was looking up, like, where it was. This is actually based in Belfast, believe it or not.
Okay.
It's, that's the major setting, although we do move to London.
I guess it's kind of over that way, over towards the Atlantic.
Yeah.
There's a coast on the Atlantic, so that may be... Well, no, there isn't.
And again, it's 2 people. So you've got Janet, who is based in Belfast. She's a supermarket worker. She's not getting on very well with her colleagues. She seems to be in a sort of mental health crisis. That her colleagues are very gently sort of saying to her, "Are you all right? There's something majorly happened in her life," and we don't get to know what that is for a little while. And then we bob over to London, where we've got Seamus, who is played by Johnny Flynn.
And he's Irish, you say.
It's played by Johnny Flynn, who I understand played David Bowie in one of the most recent films.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think that had like a star or something like that. Attached, Stardust or something like that. It reminded me of that when I was thinking about it. Anyway.
Is it called There's a Starman?
Yeah, it might be. So Seamus, now, sorry, I'll stop. Johnny Flynn, and this is the reason I know his name. Johnny Flynn has been on various podcasts, and he's been doing a lot of promotion around this. And he has said that this guy that he's playing, this sort of very metropolitan London, Sunday politics type of guy, has his own podcast, award-winning, is meant to be like a young Andrew Marr or young Robert Peston with a bit of Dermot O'Leary sort of like mixed into it. So you can imagine that sort of person. When we meet him, we don't really... Well, I didn't anyway. I didn't really take to him very kindly. He's a little narcissistic. He thinks his producer is a fan, and he takes a selfie with her without even asking who she is. You know, that sort of thing, where he seems to be a bit of an idiot.
Yeah.
And he is being given this big show, this big sort of like Sunday politics morning show. But the thing that he doesn't like about it is that he has to go and film it over in Belfast because they're trying to sort of cut costs or not just be London-centric. So off he goes to Belfast. And then there is a sort of, I'm going to hesitate to say a comedy of errors, because when Seamus finally meets up with Janet, he is being chased by some youths of Belfast, having really wound them up with his indelicate conversation about the Troubles. And she is about to take her own life in her yard.
Fucking hell.
With a sawn-off shotgun. So
wow.
It's you feel like, and I felt a bit like I felt very uneasy to begin with, because it's not a laughable moment when someone's, you know, about to take their own life. But it is played for laughs, in that he's like bundling over her yard wall and she's trying to do this thing, and he essentially saves her life, she saves his, because these kids are coming after him. And he ends up staying the night, nothing happens, but they clearly click. And then from that point on, the whole point of the show is, will they get together, won't they get together? Is it meant to be, because it's such different parts of I suppose, the different parts of life. She's working in the supermarket in Belfast. He's a minor celeb in London. You know, they've got these different worlds, and yet they are so attracted to each other. And then they're working through their various issues, which both of them have. When I first watched it, I watched a couple of episodes, and they're only sort of 30 minutes long. I thought it was a bit throwaway, but I still enjoyed it. I wanted to see what happened next with the relationship. I finished the whole series now, and it takes some really interesting turns into talking about Belfast, talking about the Troubles, talking about people's pasts, who people are, who you think they are, who they project as a personality. And it has some really deep things to say, all bundled up in sometimes very screwball, fast-paced dialogue. And at the centre of it, two people who you want them to be together. Even though I didn't take to him to begin with, I kind of softened on him a little bit. You want them to be together, even though there are all these hurdles in the way. Not least Seamus's girlfriend, who's played by the wonderful Alice Eve.
Oh,
so you've got that thrown into the middle, and you're thinking, oh, you don't want him to cheat on her, but at the same time you do. You know, so it is a comedy, but I think it's got some real depth to it. And normally, as you know, comedy is just not my bag. But I really enjoyed it. It's not going to be something that I sit and think about late into the night. But, you know, when I had a bit of time and I thought like half an hour, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to put on another episode of The Lovers and see what happens next. Let's just see where we go. And I really appreciated the dialogue. The standout performer for me is Roisin Gallagher, who plays Janet. I've not seen her in anything else before, but she really reminds me of Saran Jones.
I was going to say, I've just looked her up, and I was like, I've seen the adverts for this, and I thought it was Saran Jones in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's definitely got a presence. And if you can have a presence of anyone, I mean...
Totally.
Yeah.
And I really hope that she gets other things off this, because she can go from playing, you know, with a working class in the supermarket, very broad comedy with almost sitcom-y in the supermarket, to this beautifully glamorous being in a bar, eyes sparkling, like she's got the most beautiful, intense eyes, having these really deep conversations with people. And like I say, she really, really reminded me of Saran Jones. I think she would be amazing in something less comedic and something deeper and darker and more dramatic, because there are elements to this show. Like I say, it's not mind-blowing. It's not the sort of thing where I've sat and watched it and gone, oh my god, like, it's the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. But it's very difficult for me to like a comedy.
Yeah. And
this is a comedy, and I've enjoyed it.
I think I'll definitely check it out. It's not something I would normally go towards, but I quite like Johnny Flynn. I liked him in Emma. He was in the...
I've not seen him in anything before. Have you found out if it's Stardust or...
Yeah, it's called Stardust, yeah, which it's a film I've not seen, but he played Mr. Knightley in the latest version of Emma, the Anna Taylor-Joy version.
Not seen it.
I really like Alice Eve.
Yes.
I think she was definitely someone who felt like she was on the rise. And I don't know if Star Trek Into Darkness, like there was that really unfortunate...
Oh,
like
there was that line,
5-second,
wasn't there? Yeah.
Which I feel possibly set the industry back 10 years, but she's clearly still working, and she's doing really good work whenever I see her. But I really feel like she could have become one of the sort of regulars around the Hollywood, all different sorts of films. I think she was actually really good in Star Trek Into Darkness, and I feel really bad for her that one scene with Chris Pine happened, unfortunately. But yeah, I'll check it out. Shall we talk about films?
Yeah.
I say we.
Well, you say we. It's going to be you, and that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Let's do it.
Saturday night at the movies. Who cares what picture you see? When you're hugging with your baby, last row in the balcony.
So I've got two films to talk about. First of all, I'm going to start with The Blackening, and I'll just do this really quickly. So, do you know much about The Blackening?
Well, I know the poster or the trailer. I've seen one or the other, which is essentially a play on the trope that in a horror film, typically a black person will die first. And so the line is, we can't all die first. Is that right? So I knew it was sort of a play on that.
Yeah, so this is it's a slasher horror comedy. I think I would put it there. It's by Tim Story, who has a very interesting history of films.
Okay.
He started off doing Barbershop and
okay. Like Eddie Murphy sort of things. Was Barbershop Eddie Murphy?
It wasn't.
Cube?
I think it's an Ice Cube.
Yeah. Did you hear me say that in Ice Cube? Like the least rappy person known to mankind. Yeah.
He then went on to do the first two Fantastic Four films.
Oh, right. The ones that have what is it? Ewan Griffith in, yeah.
And obviously Chris Evans as well.
Oh yeah, of course. I forgot.
And Jessica Alba. Then ended up did the ride along films.
Don't know those.
It's yeah.
Okay, thanks. That was really insightful.
And they are, I think they're quite generic comedies.
Okay.
But he also ended up doing the Tom and Jerry film that came out a few years ago.
So he's had an interesting career.
And now he's back doing it's very, very black-based comedies. And this is very much, if you have a line where scary movies at one end and name a really tough slasher at the other. This is further towards scary movie. Not quite past Scream on the thing, but not quite, definitely nowhere near scary movie. So this is
heading towards, we're going parody,
yes,
but we're not fully
into farce. I think is probably the best way to describe it. This is a group of friends from college meet up in a cabin in the woods. And hilarity ensues. As you can probably imagine, someone's out there with a knife. Strange shit happens. If you can't see who is the murderer in this, you are not trying.
Okay.
But
are you meant to? Is it that sort of level where you're sort of you're meant to know that it isn't a real whodunit?
No, it's not. It's not that you're meant to know, but it certainly disguises it somewhat. Because I won't go into that because it's a plot point. It disguises it somewhat, but I sort of said, okay, right, it's definitely, this is where it's going. But there's some really entertaining set pieces in this. It's set around a game that they play, which is the world's worst version of Jumanji, I dare say. But it really, really it really worked for me. I laughed consistently all the way through. I didn't know any of the actors. There are people who are in a lot of TV shows and things like that, but not necessarily things that I'd watch. There is Grace Byers is probably the lead in it, and she was in the TV show Empire.
Okay, heard of it, HBO, but didn't watch it. Yeah.
Jermaine Fowler is probably the second. He was in Sorry to Bother You, which I've seen, and Coming to America, but certainly not in lead parts by any means. But yeah, this is a good fun Friday night. Have a couple of beers, have a laugh along.
Yeah.
There's lots of awkward social commentary in it, as you would imagine, given the tagline. And it really works for me. It's a good solid high three slasher film. So with a fair bit of comedy in. So
because I do like a slasher. I mean, I love Scream and I love all the Screams, even the ones that everyone hates. I really like a dodgy sequel. With those films, I can sit and watch them really happily. So I think I'll grab it when it's on the streaming channels.
And now I am back from and still getting over watching Past Lives.
Yeah, you've just been to see Past Lives today, just this afternoon, so you are quite fresh from it.
Yeah.
And you have been thinking about it a lot, because at one point this afternoon, even when you've been back for a little while, you were off somewhere else, and I had to go, are you all right? Now, I've listened to a lot of interviews with Celine Song, who wrote and directed Past Lives.
Yes.
And she said that she has heard from people who have said that they've come home and they've wanted to hug their partner and tell them that they're going to be with them for the rest of their lives. Or they come home and look at their partner and decide to break up with them. And I had neither reaction from you. So I've been waiting.
You're feeling quite paranoid
now.
now.
I've just been waiting going, well, he hasn't hugged me and told me that he's going to be with me for the rest of my life.
Okay. So Past Lives is a film that I have been following since it made its debut at, I think, the Sundance Film Festival this year. It's one of them films that came out in America probably about 3 or 4 months ago as well, and got rave reviews all on the board, and I have been absolutely waiting to go and see this.
It's been in our calendar even, and I've had to go, what's this, Past Lives?
Yeah, I put it in my calendar to sort of remind me that that's the weekend when I'm going to go see it. And,
But it's quite weird when you see in a joint calendar something come up going, Past Lives.
do you know how many times you asked me, what's Past Lives?
know,
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's like 3 or 4 before it sunk in as to
Yeah.
what it actually was. So this is the story of Nora, who we first meet as a 12-year-old girl in Korea. Her family emigrate across to Canada, leaving behind her friend stroke boyfriend. I mean, he's 12.
they're
It's one of
12.
them 12-year-old
Yeah.
relationships of his son.
Okay.
We then flash forward 12 years and they find each other through social media, have a little chat, but fall out of talking a little bit. We then go forward another 12 years and his son is coming to the USA to meet Nora, and she has moved on. She is she's married, whereas he is still living at home. He seems to have quite a good job, and the vast majority of this film, probably the 2/3 of it, is them spending time together around New York City. This star-crossed lovers, the people who come in and out of your lives, is, I will say, catnip to me, as you will well know. It is, one of my favourite films is Once, and I've got a lot of Once vibes from this, just in the way that this is framed. And, like, obviously the plot of someone who comes in, spends a week in a place, meets someone, and then
maybe get shown round it and does
Yeah.
the tourist stuff, and you get to see the city from their perspective.
Yeah.
That's very Once, isn't it? With Dublin.
I think this is more about the relationship between the two than it is about New York City. Let's make that very clear. But this is very largely a three-hander film. There is Nora, there is her husband Arthur, and this is Hae-sung. And other people come into it. There is a group of friends who come into it and disappear, but we don't learn anything about them. We don't even learn their names. It is largely 3 main actors working on this. The joys of this film are all in what is not said. The visuals, I'm so glad that I saw this in a cinema, because you want that concentration of looking at people's faces and as they look and the glances at each other. This is such a subtle film. I absolutely fell in love with all 3 of the cast members. It doesn't go down the route that you think it's going to go down. At certain points, you kind of see these sort of feelings from the attitude from one of the 3, and I'm like, oh, I really don't want it to go down that route, but it pulls it back. This will be in my top 10 of the year quite easily, quite comfortably. I don't know. I certainly don't know the main 2 actors, Greta Lee or Teo Yu. John Magaro, who plays Arthur, he's a character actor who has been in so many things. So he's been in The Big Short, he's been in First Cow, which I seem to remember him most. He was in Carol. He's been in loads of things. You would know him if you saw him. The screenplay on this is so beautifully written. The way people talk to each other. I mean, Celine Song, as someone who I now understand emigrated from Korea to Canada and then to New York from 12 years old, and then went in New York, married a writer. It must have been really tough for her to come up with these characters. I think it's even down to the fact it's like her dad's a film director, and as is Celine Song's. It must be
she's from the theatre, from what I understand. She's had a career in the theatre.
Yeah, she's a playwright.
Yeah.
I mean, guess what Nora's job is in this?
very once again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, musicians and I can see why you look. I mean, as soon as I saw everyone talking about this and what it was, I did think, oh wow, this is going to absolutely be up your street. But people are saying it's the film of the year. So, for example, Kermode, for example, is saying, if this isn't the film of the year, I don't know what it is.
See, I've not listened to any. I've not had a chance to listen to any reviews yet, and I've purposely avoided them.
I think that's a good idea because I feel I know a bit too much about it now.
Okay, that's
or that my expectations are raised. So I'm pleased that you've come back and said that you really enjoyed it.
My expectations were high.
Yeah,
and I mean, this for me, I'm still trying to work out what my star rating is, whether it's 4.5 or whether it's 5. One thing I will say is I didn't cry at this.
Oh, right, okay. That surprises me.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, I cried at Red, White and Royal Blue multiple times. And let me say that is not a better film than this.
So it didn't quite get you emotionally. You maybe respect it rather than loving it.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I think I was with these characters all the way through, and I just don't. I think everyone.
Are you meant to cry then?
I think so.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I think I was. How can I put this? I don't think it was a film which had overwhelming joy or despair. It gave me warmth rather than the overwhelming joy or despair that would raise tears, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand.
I can see why people would be drawn to tears, both through joy and sadness through this. But yeah, one thing I will say is this has one of the all-time best cold openings of a film I've ever seen. It switched on and I knew exactly where we were. I knew exactly what sort of film this is, and it's a very, very voyeuristic cold open. And I think a lot of the direction, I'm not someone who normally goes into sort of how the direction is framed and the blocking of the film, but I think the blocking of this film is so perfect. There are times when you feel like you are just watching people react naturally, and it's because we are behind objects and seeing people through things, and who we don't see in a shot is as important as who we do see in a shot. As I'm talking myself into a 5-star here. This is probably my film of the year so far. Yeah, I mean, seriously, if you were in any doubt, and it's largely subtitled, and I know that is a deal breaker for some people. Yeah. But yeah, it is a wonderful piece of cinema, and for a debut film director anyway, I think it is an absolutely astonishing piece of work.
On this podcast, we normally pull each other's leg quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I have to say, that was a beautiful review. I think that was a really, really thoughtful, insightful, without giving anything away review. So yeah, well done. I don't know how to finish that. Well done.
Well done.
Star rating for you. You get 5 stars.
Whenever you say well done, it reminds me of the end. Mm-hmm. Oh God, this is going back a bit. Do you remember the Thunderbirds Are Go song?
Oh, yes, I do, yeah.
And at the end of it, with MC Parker.
Yes.
At the end of it, Lady Penelope wishes him well done, and you saying that just sounded exactly like that. Well done.
Well done. Well, I am very posh, and I do have a pink car. Neither of those things are true.
No.
Well, you can be my chauffeur. You can be my Parker.
Not yet, I can't.
You will, very soon you will be.
Let's not curse it. Yes, someone's learning to drive right now. Yes. Just passed my theory test for the second time, because the first one ran out.
That is how long it takes. But you did really well.
That's how long it took to find a driver. Not a driver. That's not the word. An instructor.
Driving instructors. And also the lockdowns and pandemics and all sorts of other things. So yeah, you're nearly there.
Theory tests only last for 2 years. Who knew?
That's right, who knew?
Me, when I tried to book it.
And me, when I went through our box of stuff that everyone must have, of like the box of junk, the way you keep old council tax receipts and things like that. And I went through and I went, oh, look at this. Mark wouldn't need this anymore. Here's his theory test results from 2 years ago. And then I looked at the bottom and I was like, oh, it's running out next
I'm so
month.
glad you found that, because I'd still be trying to book a fucking test, trying to work out why I couldn't do it.
And that's why, because you're about to run out. But anyway, you did. Congratulations. You passed. Very, very high score as well. Again. You do really well on the theory test. It's a constant joke in our house now, isn't it? That, another 2 years you could get even higher score.
I'm going to do it again. I quite enjoyed it.
Just keep doing it.
It's the best game on the market.
Yeah, it's a really nice
the
thing to
hazard
do
perception
on a
test.
Saturday morning. Is it this just so you can get out of, going for a long walk or down to play, the soft play and that sort of stuff? Yeah. Oh, I'm off to do my theory test.
I would quite gladly have been doing that rather than being sat in that office on Saturday morning. But yes, yeah. Worst thing about it was when you texted her, we're just at the car park, and I was like, oh, she's come to pick me up because it's raining.
Oh, yeah.
And then you rang and said, yep, I'm just going to take Blake out.
Take him for a walk.
Oh, okay. I'll see what I'm then.
Well, I had said to you earlier, do you want to lift home? And you were like, no, because you wanted to decompress and you wanted to go back home. Oh, anyway, well, you had a driving lesson, didn't you? So you had to go back home for your driving lesson. Yeah. I wasn't going to drive all the way into town with Blake and then go, right, take you all the way back again.
I mean, you literally offered to do that just
yes,
before
I did,
left.
but then you said no. So then I
would have done?
Yeah, but then I had in my mind that we were doing something else. So we went off to see some art at the art gallery.
I feel we've gone. I think we've gone beyond this review of past lives.
Is this related to past lives?
Very much, yes. I've made my decision now on which way I want to go. And this will be the last episode of the Honeymoon Period podcast.
Oh, we will be back. There'll be more opportunity, I think, in the future. Now things calm down a little bit for me to get to the cinema as well. I'm going to be sort of trying to find some time to go and see some of the new films. Although I've been really happy catching up with films that I didn't see at the cinema. So I watched Scream 6 recently. I watched Tar. Films that have come on like Sky Movies or have come on Prime and things like that.
What do you make of Tar?
We might need a whole new podcast for that. I found it very cold. I found it very difficult to get into. I didn't understand certain plot points. I thought Cate Blanchett was wonderful because Cate Blanchett just is wonderful, and she clearly embodied that character, and I enjoyed trying to get to grips with the character. I respected the filmmaking and I didn't love it, and it left me confused at times, not just about what I was meant to feel, but just plot points. There were certain things that happened that, like I was saying to you, well, what happened here? And I was like Googling things, like she does certain things, particularly at the end of the film. And so I was like Googling, why does Cate Blanchett do? So I struggled with the storyline, but obviously Blanchett's brilliant and nothing takes away from that. It just didn't give me what I thought I was getting.
Okay.
I'm still very confused about it.
I was pretty much the same, to be perfectly honest.
Did you feel... I think it has something to say about cancel culture, but I'm not quite sure what it is. Did you come away with that sort of thought process around being cancelled? And
so, to be honest, the biggest discredit I could say about this film is I haven't thought about it a second since I left the cinema.
Oh, okay, right. But yeah, it's been interesting to sort of catch up with films like that and then go back and have the conversation with you of like, oh yeah, I know you've seen this sort of like in January of this year. And I don't think we talked about Tar on the podcast.
No, I think it was between a couple of episodes, and yeah, I think too much time had passed by the time I saw it.
So there've been fun things like that, and Scream 6, and I know 65's going to come on telly soon, and I missed that at the cinema, so I'm looking forward to sort of catching up with those sorts of things. But there must have been a tranche of time where I didn't get to go to the pictures as much as I had in the past few months, and maybe I'm going into that sort of period again. It's interesting sometimes to look back through the podcasts of like periods where you go quite a bit and periods when I go, and I think it's fascinating for me. It's probably not to anyone else, but just sort of, I think the podcast often reflects sort of the passage of time, because we've been doing this for 4 years. You get to see, even, just by having a look at the last 6 months, you can see periods where we were really, really busy and some big things were happening in our life, or times where I had a bit more time on my hands and I was off to, the local cinema, essentially weekly. I find it quite fascinating because it's I suppose as a researcher, something I do in my day-to-day life, I can look at it as a piece of data of almost like a diary of our lives over the past 4 years. Are you thinking, how do you move on from this?
Yeah,
this weird
I'm trying to say, how
that
do I
I've gone
tell you
into?
to go see Past Lives so I can talk to you about things. And In all seriousness, I really think you would. I just, even if it's just purely from the performance of the film, I think you would really enjoy Past Lives.
Yeah.
I
will find, because it helps for you to be saying that you should go and see it in the cinema, because I was just thinking, I can like get it on telly, but if you're saying you need to have that level of focus,
I think it's a focus. I think you would miss so much when you do have the distractions of not being in a darkened room. And
okay,
it's only just over an hour and a half. So,
so that fits
it's like,
we can find some time, can't we?
Yeah, it's like 100 minutes with the credits. So yeah.
Maybe I'll be bobbing off to see it next weekend.
Good. Yes, I think you should. Right. I think we've flown through this episode.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know how long this is, but it seems to be one of our shorter ones.
I did say to you we're going to have to make it shorter than some
my voice has just got really loud on the podcast while I go check what the time is on the...
We've done really well. I'm really pleased. Less for me to edit.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for listening.
Thank you
for
so
joining
much
us
for
this
listening.
far. You can follow us online at Twitter for now.
Yeah.
And Instagram at The Honeymoon Pod. And I'm also on Letterboxd at The Honeymoon Pod, which I'm quite enjoying recently.
Yeah, and I've seen other people on other podcasts we listen to have been talking about their Letterboxd accounts as well, so maybe that's a good place to send people.
Yeah. I got into a nice little chat with Rob Daniel
over
a film that he saw that has a great part in my mind and may be appearing on the podcast sometime soon.
Oh, fantastic. Well, maybe if that's the new place to sort of hang out and talk about films and not the madness of Twitter, then I'm quite happy with that.
Yeah. You join.
I will.
No, you won't.
No, I won't,
No, you
because
won't.
we've got our account.
No, but
Do I do a
mine's
personal
definitely
one?
me.
Okay, is it the Honeymoon Pod account is definitely you, is it?
It's called Mark G rather than...
Is it? It's rather than The Honeymoon. So how do people find the Letterboxd then?
It's at The Honeymoon Pod.
Oh, right, okay.
Is my username, but it is definitely me.
Oh, right, it's definitely you. Okay.
And if you'd like to leave us a review on this scintillating... Don't base it on that last 20 seconds.
On that. 5 stars based on some other small part of the podcast that you really liked.
On Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on Pocket Casts, or anywhere else you can actually give us a review.
All right, see you next time.
See you next time.